Welcome to The Courage to Reconnect. I'm your host, Sarah Monares, therapist, coach, and author. It has always been important to me to create intentional spaces to talk openly about the things so many people quietly carry alone. Because it's in the open that we heal, and it's in the open that we allow ourselves to be fully seen. In this space, we have real conversations about things like relationships, attachment, anxiety, codependency, healing, and the patterns that keep us disconnected from ourselves and the people we care about most. Together, we'll explore what it means to reconnect with yourself, create healthier relationships, and become more fully who you really are, and exit your loop. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get brave and dive in. Trigger. It's actually a buzzword currently, so I'm sure you're familiar with it. You've probably heard it on social media, podcasts. It's all over in the self-help world. People will say things like, that's my trigger, or that triggers me, which I think is really great. I think it's great that there's a lot of awareness about triggers. And really, though, I think right now, there's also a lot of misconception about triggers. There's a way that triggers are being used at the moment to, in a sense, set boundaries with people because they will use the buzzword like you're triggering me, and it can actually be used against other people and really not taking responsibility for their own triggers, but more of like an expectation that somebody else change their behavior based on your trigger. So the triggers are the disconnection loop starts with the trigger. It's the entry point to get the loop started, and it's really important to know about triggers, understand them, so that we can really understand how the loop even gets started in the first place. So I really want to break this down with you. I really want you to get familiar with your triggers, understand your triggers, and I'm going to help you do that along the way. So some examples of triggers can be things like an unanswered text message from someone, or maybe even just someone taking too long or what feels too long to respond to your text message. It can be a change in someone's tone or the look on their face while you're talking. Maybe it's a certain phrase that someone uses. At one point, I worked with someone who said that I would get a look on my face and it would trigger them because the look on my face had nothing to do with them, but their aunt made the same look. So it can be something that feels almost really minor, but it can be bigger things too, like not feeling like you're being heard in a conversation. We all have triggers, and they are based on our experiences, our wounds, and our conditioning. And a lot of times, once we get to the judgment and the doubt part of the loop, which we'll talk more about, but shame around our triggers kicks in. And we often look back at a reaction that we've had and we think, why did I react so strongly to that? We really judge ourselves for the reaction that comes out later, but that's why it's important to understand why. Why does that feel so strong? Why does it feel so intense, so instantly sometimes? So let's understand that a trigger is not really the event itself. A trigger is what happens when something activates. So it's a belief in your brain that your brain has about yourself and of the world. These beliefs are developed through your conditioning. And in the next episode, we actually talk a lot more about your conditioning and your beliefs. But for now, let's use this example. Let's say that you grew up in a household where a parent called you dumb. that treatment, that messaging and that wounding is really what it is, would create the belief in you that you aren't smart enough and that people will judge you based on your intelligence. That's a belief about yourself and the world, because the world includes other people. So you believe they will judge. You believe that inherently you aren't smart enough. So now, as an adult, this is something you've incorporated as a child. Now, as an adult, if someone calls you dumb, if you feel like maybe they're undermining you, or even when someone is giving you feedback that's healthy, those could all be triggers that activate that core belief inside of you. So it's important to know that when you're triggered, it's not just about that one experience. Someone calls you dumb in passing at work. Oh, that wasn't the smartest thing to do. Let's say that because that sounds like something many people would say. It seems minor, right? It seems like, oh, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. It shouldn't bother me that much. But it really, really does. And so it's because I want you to think about it like a string of pearls. So a present day experience today touches one of the pearls. So every time you have an experience of being called dumb or somebody wounding you in this way, another pearl gets put on the strand, and then you put another one and another one and another one until you have a whole string. And suddenly there's an entire chain of old experiences, emotions, and beliefs, and even memories that come rushing back to the surface whenever there is a trigger. So when this one thing happens, it's activating the entire strand. It's not just activating that one pearl. So that's why a trigger can feel so intense. Your reaction isn't just about what's happening right now in the moment. It's connected to everything your mind and your body has associated with similar experiences in the past. So this is where the compassion and the curiosity comes into play, right? Because we often judge ourselves. Why is this such a big deal? Because of course it's a big deal. When every single experience that you've had with this wound is being activated, it can feel very overwhelming and very flooding. And so it's important for you to know that your triggers, they're not proof that something's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. What our triggers are here to do is they're here to give you information. And this is why it's so important to know about our triggers and to understand our triggers, because when we do, it's so much easier and faster to intervene in the loop. So when that strand is activated, you move quickly. This usually happens so quickly, and so that's why we want to slow this part of the process down as much as we can. So you're triggered, then your belief is activated, and then you move to fear. So your trigger is really the entry point to your nervous system activating, your emotional memory that's held inside your brain and inside your body from those past experiences and that conditioning and wounding. It's all activated in such a fast process. The body reacts sometimes impulsively before our logic can even catch up to what's actually going on. So sometimes the reaction feels bigger than the moment because your nervous system isn't only responding to what's happening now. It's responding to the moments, all the moments that one comment, well, that wasn't the smartest thing to do, remind you of. going all the way back to 5 years old, 6 years old, 10 years old, all along your timeline. And so in NLP, we do something where we release all of these along the timeline, which is really effective and helpful, so that when you are triggered, it doesn't take away triggers, but what it does is when there's a trigger, it's only that one event that's activated. It removes the rest of the pearls from the strand, and so it's much easier to manage the triggers. So you can do techniques like that, and you need the help of a professional, somebody who's trained in NLP to do that. There are a lot of different approaches, and I would say NLP is probably my favorite for this. I don't know that going through every single memory when you were triggered is necessary. I don't actually believe that that's necessary. I don't believe you have to go into these core wounding memories in order to change them, because your unconscious mind knows the wounding, and so you can actually do it without going into memories. For me, I had experiences early in my life when men used their physical bodies and strengths as power over me. And so because those things happened, or that happened multiple times throughout my life, I have a adversity to feeling cornered, especially by men. So my husband, I've been with for almost 20 years. He's a big guy, and he has never hit me. He's never physically hurt me or used his body to overpower me. There's no evidence to support that he's going to physically hurt me in 20 years. But there have been instances in our relationship, like when he walks into a room and I'm inside the room and he stands and blocks the doorway. It's a trigger for me. I don't like it. I don't like to feel blocked by him. I've even said to him, I feel like you're blocking me. I don't like it. Can you move out of the doorway? That is my trigger, and it's my responsibility to speak up, which we're going to get more into. What is our responsibility as far as our triggers go? But there's no evidence to support that if he's blocking the doorway, he's going to hurt me. But my brain still goes back to those old places. So our triggers can be a reaction to something that may not even actually be happening. But our brain is reminding us of the old threat, and it does whatever it thinks it can to try and keep us safe. That is the job of the unconscious mind, is to keep you safe. And sometimes it does that in ways that don't serve you anymore. So the brain is usually scanning, is this dangerous? But it can also be asking, does this situation feel familiar? Have I been in this situation before? Is there something familiar, similar to what's happening right now? And if so, then it may automatically assume that this is dangerous. So let's go through some really common examples of triggers. Things like being criticized, feeling ignored, having conflict, even if it's healthy conflict. That's why a lot of times people avoid conflict, because conflict is a trigger for them. Disappointment, rejection, feeling misunderstood, not wanting someone to be upset with you, feeling excluded from a group, having a lack of reassurance from a loved one. These triggers can often be traced back to do I belong? Is this person going to leave me? And that is also not safe, right? The abandonment triggers the fear within us because we need to belong. We want to belong, right? And so how other people feel about us, how other people react to us, how other people respond, those often become the main triggers because we're searching them to see, am I safe? Are you going to leave? Are you going to judge me? And so I think it's really important to be mindful also about the fact that different people can have very different reactions to the same situation. So I can be triggered when my husband stands in the doorway, and other people cannot be triggered in that situation. And it's okay for us to have different reactions to different situations. Just because you respond one way to something doesn't mean everybody is going to. This is where you come back to what is true for me. How do I respond? What does this activate within me? It's a coming back and having awareness about yourself so that you can learn to intervene and respond differently to those triggers. We often look outside of ourselves to other people. Well, how does so-and-so react when this happens? They didn't freak out the way that I did, but they don't have the same experiences that you did. So this is a time for us to shift from fear or judgment of these triggers into a place of curiosity. We can thank our brain, really actually have a conversation with your brain. Thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe. I know that that's what you're trying to do. And then let it know I'm changing things. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. And I don't need you to keep me safe in this way anymore. We will get to the giving it new instructions, but quickly, this is a, going back to the change method, this is a brave action step, right? Is to give it a new instruction to what you want instead. So this is no longer serving us. I don't need you to keep me safe in this way anymore. Thank you. And now what I need you to do is respond in this way. Speak up when your feelings are hurt. Don't stuff it down inside. Tell the person who said, well, that wasn't a really smart thing to do. Tell them how that comment affects you when they say that. There's lots of different ways to respond where you can actually get your needs met. Then allowing the trigger to get you back into the same old stuck loop. So you're letting it know that you're changing things. And this is a really great place to start opening yourself up to awareness so that you can really gather the information that you need. As I said before, the triggers are trying to give you information. The goal here is not to stop being triggered. That's totally unrealistic. To never be triggered again, to not have triggers, totally unrealistic. So we're not going to go from one extreme to the other. We're going to recognize the triggers and we're going to respond to them differently, which is more of the happy in-between place. So the goal is to become curious about what the trigger is trying to show you. What is it trying to communicate to you? The other important thing I really want to say, because I think this is where people really, really, really get tripped up, especially now with the buzzword of triggers, and that's my trigger. Our goal is not to avoid all triggers. So I've heard people say, well, I'm not going to go there because it triggers me, or I'm not going to do that because it triggers me, or I'm not going to talk to that person because they trigger me. Avoiding triggers does not help you grow. Avoiding triggers is just, it's avoidance to stay comfortable. The goal is absolutely not to avoid all triggers. Yes, you can recognize them, you can know them, but then you have to respond to them and not just avoid them. I've also really heard a lot of people say, to other people, that triggers me. You need to stop doing blah, 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 blah. That triggers me when you raise your voice. And so you need to never raise your voice with me. That's unrealistic. Your trigger is your responsibility. We are responsible for our own triggers. There's differences here, right? Okay, we'll use the example of raising the voice. If someone's screaming and yelling at you and calling you names and being verbally abusive or aggressive, of course, that's absolutely not okay. And of course, that's going to trigger you. That, though, is a whole nother issue. It's a whole nother issue in and of itself. That's where boundaries need to be set. That's where you have to get really clear what's okay and what's not okay for the way people treat you and talk to you. That has a lot to do with your own personal power. But what's happening is, and yes, by all means, if someone's hurting you, if someone's verbally abusing you, you have every right to create distance, to get away, to not stay present for that. And a lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times what I see happen is somebody is having a passionate discussion, and so they're raising their voice a little bit. Maybe they're talking a little louder, and they're trying to get you to hear their point and understand where they're coming from. It's a normal part of being in relationship, because relationships, there are going to be times where you do get activated. You do get passionate about what you're saying. Maybe you do raise your voice. And if that triggers you, it's really important for you to understand, oh, that really triggers me. Why does it trigger me? Bringing it back to yourself and your own responsibility to do the work that you need to do to understand that this partner of mine, they're passionate. They really want to be heard. They really want me to hear what they're saying. It's not a reflection of me and my worth and my value or a threat. It's my trigger based on my past beliefs, my past experiences, my past wounding. And that's work that I need to do, not shut my partner down and keep them from communicating. That's really common. So when a partner passionately communicates and that makes you feel uncomfortable, then it's really common to shut that person down because you don't want to deal with that trigger and getting sucked into the loop. So it's easier, more comfortable to say, stop talking to me like that. You're not allowed to talk to me like that. It's okay to say that. And it's not okay to avoid and manipulate and shut down the other person. What I want you to really be aware of here is, what am I triggered by? And understanding that your triggers are your own responsibility. You can communicate, and this is, I feel like we're getting into couples work here, which we will do later in the podcast, but you can communicate your needs, your triggers. You can be open about those. You can be honest, which is really great, vulnerable communication. Hey, when you talk like that, it really activates these wounds in me, and I'm really working hard to stay here and to stay present in this conversation because I know what you have to say is important, and I'm also triggered. So just know that that's my process, and I'm really trying to stay here and stay present for you. That communication is so much more connecting to yourself, honoring yourself, but also in your relationship as well. So I just feel like I hound it over and over and over. Other people are not responsible for your triggers. You are. And responsible for doing the work to get the information that you need. So when we're triggered, remember, it's rarely just about what's happening in the present moment. The trigger activates old conditioning, which are beliefs, experiences, and lessons we've learned about ourselves, about other people, and relationships. And that conditioning shapes the meaning that we assign to the moment. And from there, fear enters the picture, and fear is often the force that keeps the rest of the loop moving. So over the next week, I would love for you to pay attention to the moments that create a bigger reaction that the situation seems to warrant. So going back to the change method, and if you haven't listened to that episode yet, it's foundational for all of these episodes. So make sure that you listen to the episode about the change method. And instead of judging yourself, get curious. Ask yourself questions like, what just got activated? What story am I telling myself? What does this moment remind me of? What does this trigger mean to me? What fear just got activated? What belief is underneath this reaction? If you open yourself up, you create the space to curiously gather that awareness, I think you'll be really surprised by the information that you get and what you discover. If you'd like to explore your own triggers and patterns more deeply, I've created the Courage to Reconnect workbook to help guide you through that process, and you can find the link to that in the show notes. So I will see you next time, where we will continue to dig deeper into the loop. See you then. Thank you for being here with me today on the Courage to Reconnect. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who may need it too. You can listen to all of the episodes over on couragepod.com. Remember, change doesn't happen through awareness alone. It happens when we begin showing up for ourselves with curiosity and self-compassion, taking brave action, and practice reconnecting instead of repeating the same old patterns. Until next time, keep finding the courage to show up and stay connected, even when it's uncomfortable. I am cheering you on. This podcast is produced by Loudspeaker, and it is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for therapy or individualized mental health care. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapeutic relationship with Sarah Monares or any other guests. If you need additional support, I really encourage you, please reach out to a licensed mental health professional in your area, or visit findahelpline.com for international information about mental health support near you.
This is Loudspeaker.